The Galactic Assembly Hall was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known universe. It floated in the emptiness of space on a station called Nexus Prime, far from any star or planet. Here, 1,000 different alien races came together to discuss trade, resolve disputes, and maintain peace. The hall itself could hold nearly 1 million beings, and today, every seat was filled. Ambassador Katie Marshall stood near the human section with her arms crossed. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen decades of alien politics. Beside her stood Admiral Nathan Cole, commander of Earth's Stellar Defense Fleet. He was a quiet man with broad shoulders and a calm face that rarely showed emotion. Behind them sat 200 human diplomats and military advisors. The rest of the assembly watched with nervous energy. Word had spread quickly through the station. The Zorvathi Dominion had called for an emergency session. Everyone knew what that meant. The Zorvathi were warriors. Their entire civilization was built around combat and honor and the glory of battle. For 10,000 years, they had honored a truce with humanity. No one really remembered why. The Zorvathi claimed they had shown mercy to a weak species that was not worth destroying. Most of the galaxy accepted this story as truth. A loud horn echoed through the hall. The massive doors at the far end opened, and the Zorvathi delegation entered. They were impressive to look at. Each Zorvathi stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 muscular arms and skin like dark blue stone. Their eyes glowed with soft orange light, and their faces were flat with no nose, just 2 slits for breathing. They wore armor made from the bones of creatures they had killed in ritual hunts. At their front walked High Warlord Vexther, the supreme commander of all Zorvathi military forces. Vexther walked to the central platform and looked out at the assembly. His voice boomed without any need for amplification. 10,000 years ago, my ancestors encountered a small species crawling out from a tiny blue world, he said. These creatures called themselves humans. They were weak. They were primitive. They had barely learned to leave their own planet. My ancestors could have crushed them like insects beneath their feet. He paused and let his words hang in the air. But my ancestors were merciful. They saw no honor in destroying something so pathetic. So they offered a truce. They allowed the humans to live, to grow, to spread across the stars under Zorvathi protection. For 10,000 years, we have kept this promise. We have watched the humans multiply and build their little civilization. Counselor Megan Torres, the human representative on the Galactic Council, leaned forward in her seat. Her face showed nothing. She had been trained for this moment her entire life. Today, Vexther continued, I stand before this assembly to announce that the truce is over. A wave of gasps and murmurs swept through the hall. Alien diplomats turned to look at each other with wide eyes. Some species had never seen war in their entire history. They could not imagine what was about to happen. The Zorvathi Dominion hereby declares war upon the United Earth Federation and all human territories, Vexther said. His voice was filled with pride. We will reclaim the honor that was lost when we showed weakness to an inferior species. We will remind the galaxy that the Zorvathi are the greatest warriors ever born. And we will erase the stain of human existence from the stars. He raised all 4 of his arms in a gesture of triumph. Behind him, the Zorvathi delegation beat their armored chests in approval. The entire assembly fell silent. Every eye turned toward the human section. Diplomats from 100 different worlds expected to see fear. They expected panic and desperate pleas for help. They expected humans to beg the Galactic Council for protection. What they saw instead made no sense. Ambassador Katie Marshall was laughing. It started as a small sound, almost like a cough. Then it grew louder. Her shoulders began to shake. Tears formed at the corners of her eyes. Admiral Nathan Cole looked at her, and then he began to laugh too. His deep voice filled the silent hall. Behind them, the human delegation joined in. 200 men and women laughed until they could barely breathe. Some clapped each other on the backs. Others wiped tears from their faces. The sound of human laughter echoed off the walls of the great assembly hall. The Xolothy delegation stood frozen. High Warlord Vexter stared at the humans with confusion that slowly turned to rage. "You dare mock us?" he roared. "You dare laugh at the Xolothy Dominion?" Katie Marshall finally controlled herself. She stepped forward onto the central platform and faced the massive warlord. The top of her head barely reached his chest, but she showed no fear. "Forgive me, High Warlord," she said, still smiling. "It has been a very long time since I laughed that hard. I needed that." "You are either insane or incredibly stupid," Vexter growled. "Do you not understand what I have just said? We are going to destroy your entire species." Katie nodded slowly. "Yes, I heard you. Every word. And I want to thank you." "Thank me?" "Your ancestors made a promise to mine 10,000 years ago," Katie said. "They promised that one day they would return to finish what they started. My ancestors made a promise too. They promised that we would be ready. And we have been waiting. For 10,000 years, High Warlord. We have been waiting for this exact moment." The assembly hall was completely silent now. Not a single being moved or spoke. Katie Marshall looked up at the Xolothy warlord with eyes that held something ancient and patient and terrifying. "You have no idea what you have just done," she said softly. "But you will. Very soon, you will understand exactly what humanity has become while you were busy telling stories about your own greatness." She turned and walked back to the human delegation. Admiral Cole fell into step beside her. "Signal Earth Command," she said quietly. "Tell them the wait is over." Admiral Cole nodded. A small smile remained on his face. Behind them, High Warlord Vexter watched the humans leave the assembly hall. For the first time in his long life, he felt something cold settle in his stomach. He did not know what it was. In 100 years, Xolothy children would learn the name for that feeling. It was called fear. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains on Earth, there was a place that did not officially exist. The Strategic Command Center had been built 5,000 years ago, carved out of solid rock and reinforced with materials that could survive a direct nuclear strike. This was where humanity planned for the end of peace. General Derek Hayes stood before a wall of screens showing military deployments across 4,000 human worlds. He was a large man with dark skin and gray at his temples. He had spent 40 years preparing for a war he hoped would never come. Now it was here, and he felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it as relief. The Xolothy fleet launched 6 hours ago, reported Fleet Admiral Ryan Cooper from his position at the central table. He was younger than Hayes, with red hair and a face full of freckles that made him look like he belonged on a farm instead of commanding the largest military force in galactic history. 200,000 ships. Their entire navy. That is everything they have? Asked Dr. Lauren Kim. She was small and thin, with glasses that she constantly adjusted. As Earth's chief historian and xenorchaeologist, she had spent her life studying the Xolothy. She knew their secrets better than they knew themselves. Everything, Admiral Cooper confirmed. They held nothing back. They really believe this will be easy. General Hayes shook his head slowly. They believe their own lies. That is always dangerous. The screens around the room flickered, and a connection opened to the Galactic Council chambers. The broadcast would reach every inhabited world in the known galaxy. Ambassador Katie Marshall stood at the central podium with Dr. Kim beside her. "Citizens of the galactic community," Katie began, "the Xolothy Dominion has declared war on humanity. Before this conflict begins in earnest, We believe the galaxy deserves to know the truth. The real truth about what happened 10,000 years ago. Dr. Kim stepped forward. Behind her, ancient images began to appear on the massive display screens. "This is the human ship Pioneer 7, she said, pointing to a crude metal cylinder floating in space. 10,000 years ago, this was the pride of our fleet. Chemical rockets. No shields. Weapons that fired simple metal projectiles. We had 12 ships like this one." She pressed a button, and the image changed to show a massive Zorvathi warship bristling with weapons. "This is what the Zorvathi sent to destroy us. 50,000 ships, each one capable of destroying a planet. They found our 12 little vessels defending Earth and expected an easy victory." The assembly hall on Nexus Prime was silent. Alien diplomats leaned forward in their seats. "The Zorvathi attacked," Dr. Kim continued. "And something unexpected happened. The humans fought back. New images appeared. They were grainy and damaged by time, but they showed chaos. Zorvathi ships exploding. Human vessels ramming directly into enemy formations. Small shuttles filled with soldiers boarding Zorvathi warships and fighting hand-to-hand in the corridors. In the first battle, humanity destroyed 12,000 Zorvathi ships. We lost 8 of our 12 vessels, but the 4 that remained kept fighting. They captured enemy ships and turned the weapons against the Zorvathi fleet. Human soldiers, with nothing but primitive guns and knives, boarded Zorvathi cruisers and killed everyone inside." Dr. Kim paused to let the images speak for themselves. Zorvathi warriors, 3 meters tall with 4 arms, lying dead at the feet of small human soldiers. The battle lasted 3 weeks. When it ended, 47,000 Zorvathi ships had been destroyed. Humanity had 4 surviving vessels and less than 200 soldiers still alive. And the Zorvathi High Command made a decision. She displayed an ancient document covered in Zorvathi script. "This is the original Truce agreement. Not the version they teach in Zorvathi schools. The real one. I found it in a sealed archive on a dead Zorvathi colony world. Allow me to read the relevant section." Dr. Kim adjusted her glasses and began to read. "We, the High Council of the Zorvathi Dominion, hereby request an immediate end to hostilities with the human species. We recognize that continued conflict will result in the total destruction of our military forces. We ask only that the humans allow us to retreat with what remains of our fleet. In exchange, we pledge to never attack human space again." Gasps echoed through the assembly hall. The Zorvathi delegation sat frozen in shock. "They did not show mercy," Dr. Kim said. "They begged for it. They were so ashamed of losing to a primitive species that they erased the truth from their own history. They taught their children a comfortable lie, and they forgot what humanity really is." The screens changed one final time, showing a map of human space. It was enormous, covering a full quarter of the galaxy. 10,000 years ago, we had 12 ships, Dr. Kim said. Today, the United Earth Federation maintains a fleet of 2,300,000 combat vessels. We have 890 billion soldiers serving across 4,000 colonized worlds. Our technology has advanced beyond anything the Zorvathi can imagine. She looked directly at the visual sensors that carried her image. Across the stars, the Zorvathi are sending 200,000 ships to fight us. That is their entire military. And I want the galaxy to understand something very important. Dr. Kim removed her glasses and spoke with absolute calm. 200,000 ships is not enough to conquer one human colony world. It is not enough to challenge a single human defense fleet. The Zorvathi have declared war on a species that has spent 10,000 years preparing for exactly this moment. They have made a terrible mistake. Back in the command center, General Hayes watched the broadcast end. Around him, officers and strategists waited for orders. Deploy the 1st through 20th Defense Fleets to the border, he said. Full combat readiness. And send the message to the Zorvathi fleet. What message, sir? Asked an aide. General Hayes smiled. It was not a kind expression. Tell them we are coming. Tell them we remember everything. And tell them that this time, there will be no truce unless they earn it. Across the galaxy, the Zorvathi invasion fleet continued toward human space. Admiral Krixnar sat in his command chair and watched the broadcast with growing horror. He had trained his entire life to fight humans. He had believed they were weak, cowardly, inferior. Now he understood the truth. He was leading 200,000 ships into a war they could not win, and there was no way to turn back. The colony world of New Montana sat at the edge of human space. It was a green planet covered in forests and grasslands, home to 12 million farmers and their families. For centuries, it had been a peaceful place where people came to escape the busy life of the core worlds. Captain Scott Miller stood on the bridge of his destroyer, the Relentless, and watched the Zorvathi Vanguard fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel. 15,000 warships filled his view screen, each one bristling with weapons and painted with symbols of death. Contact confirmed, said Lieutenant Ashley Chung from her tactical station. She was young, barely 30 years old, with short black hair and steady hands. 15,000 enemy vessels. They are moving toward New Montana at attack speed. Captain Miller nodded slowly. He commanded a patrol group of 5 destroyers. 5 ships against 15,000. The math seemed impossible, but Captain Miller had studied history. He knew what 12 human ships had done 10,000 years ago. Open a channel to the enemy flagship, he said. The view screen flickered, and the face of a Zorvathi commander appeared. Strike Commander Dex Rawl was massive, even by Zorvathi standards, with ritual scars covering his face and burning hatred in his orange eyes. Human vessel? Dex Rawl growled. You are outnumbered 3,000 to 1. Surrender now, and we will grant you a quick death. Resist, and we will burn your world to ashes and scatter the remains across the void. Captain Miller leaned back in his chair and smiled. Come and take them, he said. The ancient phrase had been used by human warriors for thousands of years. It meant only one thing. We will fight until the end. Foolish creature, Vexrel spat. You will regret those words. The channel closed. The Zorvathi fleet began to accelerate toward the 5 human destroyers. All ships, combat formation, Captain Miller ordered. Weapons free. Show them what we have learned in 10,000 years. The 5 destroyers moved with perfect coordination, spreading apart in a pattern that the Zorvathi tactical officers had never seen before. Their hulls shimmered as adaptive shield matrices came online, adjusting thousands of times per second to deflect incoming fire. The first wave of Zorvathi missiles crossed the gap between the fleets. Lieutenant Chun tracked them with calm precision. Incoming ordnance. 300 missiles. Point defense, Captain Miller ordered. The Relentless came alive. Automated weapon systems fired beams of light that moved faster than thought. In less than a second, every missile was destroyed. Not a single one came within 1,000 kilometers of the human ships. Return fire, Captain Miller said. Quantum torpedoes. Full spread. Human weapons launched from all 5 destroyers. These were not the primitive projectiles of 10,000 years ago. These were quantum tunneling missiles that could phase through any known shield technology. They did not fly toward their targets. They simply appeared inside enemy ships and detonated. The first 6,000 Zorvathi vessels exploded in a wave of fire and debris. Their shields had done nothing. Their armor had meant nothing. They died without understanding what had killed them. Strike Commander Dex Rawl stared at his tactical display with his mouth hanging open. Half his fleet was gone. The battle had lasted less than a minute. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." The human destroyers pressed forward. Their AI-assisted targeting systems predicted where Zorvati ships would move before the pilots even thought about it. Every shot hit its target. Every torpedo found its mark. "Enemy fleet attempting to retreat," Lieutenant Chun reported. "They are breaking formation." Captain Miller watched the Zorvati ships scatter like frightened animals. 9,000 vessels remained, and they were running. "Do not let them escape," he said. "They came here to kill our families. They do not get to leave." The 5 destroyers gave chase. They were faster than anything the Zorvathi had ever built. Ships that were retreating at maximum speed found human vessels appearing in front of them, cutting off escape routes. Then the sky filled with new contacts. The 3rd human expeditionary fleet arrived without warning. 50,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, surrounding the surviving Zorvathi vessels from every direction. Admiral Cooper's flagship, the carrier Unity, led the formation. "This is Fleet Admiral Ryan Cooper to all Zorvathi vessels," came the broadcast. "You are surrounded. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your shields cannot protect you. You have exactly 30 seconds to power down your engines and surrender." Strike Commander Thex looked at the tactical display. 50,000 human ships. His 9,000 survivors were trapped. "What do we do?" asked one of his officers. Thexrol had no answer. He had been told humans were weak. He had been promised an easy victory. Now he understood that everything he believed was a lie. On the surface of New Montana, the situation was equally one-sided. Zorvathi ground forces had landed expecting to find helpless farmers. Instead, they found Commander Kyle Bennett and the 47th Marines waiting for them. The Zorvathi were bigger. They were stronger. They had 4 arms and skin like stone. None of it mattered. Commander Bennett's Marines moved through the forest like shadows. They appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating force, and vanished before the Zorvathi could respond. Human soldiers were smaller, yes, but they were also faster, smarter, and completely without mercy. The Zorvathi had a word for creatures like humans. They called them Deathworlders, beings who evolved on planets so hostile that survival required becoming monsters. Earth was one such world, a place of extreme temperatures, powerful gravity, endless predators, and constant disaster. Humans had not just survived there. They had conquered it. Now the Zorvathi understood what that meant. Within hours, the ground battle was over. 3,000 Zorvathi soldiers had landed. 12 survived to be taken prisoner. The rest were buried in shallow graves across New Montana's green fields. Captain Miller watched from orbit as the last Zorvathi ships powered down and surrendered. "Send one ship back to their fleet," he ordered. "Let them carry a message." "What message, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Chun. Miller looked at the view screen, at the wreckage of what had been the most feared military force in Zorvathi history. "Tell them this was our patrol group. 5 destroyers guarding a farming colony. Tell them we barely had to try. And tell them that the main fleet is coming. 2 million ships. And we are not going to be as gentle as we were today." The surviving Zorvathi vessel fled toward home, carrying news that would shake the foundations of an empire. The war had barely begun, and already the Zorvathi knew the terrible truth. They could not win. They could only pray for survival. The Zorvathi homeworld of Varth Prime was ancient. For 100,000 years, the Zorvathi had built their civilization there, raising monuments to victory and writing legends about their unmatched strength. Every child grew up learning that the Zorvathi were the greatest warriors the galaxy had ever known. Now those children looked up at the sky and saw Death. 500,000 human warships hung in orbit above Varith Prime. They had crossed the vast distance between human and Zavathi space in 3 days. The Zorvathi military command had expected months. They had planned to rebuild, to recruit, to prepare defenses. Instead, they woke to find the enemy already at their door. Admiral Christina Wells stood on the bridge of her flagship, the battleship Judgment, and studied the Zarvathi capital city below. It was beautiful, she had to admit. Tall spires of crystal and stone reaching toward the heavens. Gardens that had been tended for 10,000 generations. Museums filled with art and history and the dreams of an entire species. She could destroy it all with a single command. Part of her wanted to. "Ma'am," said her communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from Earth. President Martinez wants to speak with you directly. Put him through." The face of President Alan Martinez appeared on her screen. He was an older man with kind eyes and a calm voice that had guided humanity through decades of peace. Now he was leading them through war. "Admiral Wells," he said, "what is the situation?" "The Zorvathi homeworld is completely surrounded," she reported. "Their defense fleet was destroyed in the outer system. They have no military ships remaining. Total victory is possible within the hour." President Martinez nodded slowly. "And the civilian population?" 8 billion Zavathi on this world alone. Mostly non-combatants. Families. Children. There was silence on the line. Everyone knew what the next question would be. "What are your recommendations, Admiral?" Christina Wells had spent her career studying war. She understood that complete victory sometimes required terrible choices. The Zorvathi had attacked humanity twice now. They had tried to exterminate an entire species. If they were allowed to survive, they might try again in another 10,000 years. "The tactical recommendation is obvious," she said. "Glass the planet. Eliminate the threat permanently." "And your personal recommendation?" Admiral Wells looked at the Zorvathi world below her. She thought about the children down there, the ones who had nothing to do with this war. She thought about what humanity had become over 10,000 years of waiting. "We are better than they thought we were," she said quietly. "If we destroy them completely, we prove them right to fear us. If we show mercy, we prove something else entirely." President Martinez smiled. "That is what I hoped you would say." Deep within the imperial palace on Varth Prime, Empress Zalvira sat on her throne and watched the end of everything she knew. Her advisors had fled. Her generals had surrendered. Her entire civilization was held hostage by the species she had promised to destroy. An old Zorvathi entered the throne room. Elder Vrexmoth was ancient, over 400 years old, with pale blue skin and eyes clouded by age. He carried a box made of dark wood. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing low, "there is something you must see." "I have seen enough," the Empress said bitterly. "I have seen the end of our people." "No, Your Majesty. You have seen the lies we told ourselves. Now you must see the truth." He opened the box and removed a collection of ancient documents. These were the Forbidden's archives, hidden for 10,000 years. The real history of the Zorvathi human war. Zalvira read in silence. She saw the records of Zorvathi commanders begging for peace. She saw the reports of human soldiers fighting with such ferocity that veteran Zorvathi warriors broke and ran. She saw the original truce agreement, signed not in victory but in desperation. "We were never the superior force," Rexmoth said. "We were the ones who nearly died. Our ancestors survived only because the humans allowed it. And then we erased that truth because we could not bear the shame." The Empress set down the documents. Her hands were shaking. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because the humans are not like us," the Elder said. "They could destroy every Zorvathi world in a single day. They could erase our species from history. But they have not. They are waiting. That means there is still hope. At that moment, every screen in the Zorvathi Empire flickered to life. The face of President Martinez appeared, broadcast to every world under Zorvathi control. People of the Zorvathi Dominion, he began. Your government declared war on humanity. Your fleet crossed into our space with plans to murder billions of innocent people. By any measure of justice, we would be right to respond in kind. He paused, letting the words sink in. Your ancestors attacked us when we were infants among the stars. 12 ships against 50,000. We still won. Your children attacked us at the height of our power. 500,000 ships now orbit your homeworld. The mathematics are clear. This is not a war. This is a reckoning. The Empress watched with tears forming in her eyes. But we are not here for revenge, President Martinez continued. We are not here to repeat the mistakes of the past. We are here because 10,000 years ago, our ancestors made a choice. They chose to show mercy even when mercy was not deserved. And that choice allowed both our species to survive. His voice softened. Today, we make that choice again. Not because we are weak. Not because we are afraid. Because mercy is not the absence of strength. It is the highest expression of it. We are offering your species a future. What you do with that future is up to you. The broadcast ended. Across the Zorvathi Empire, billions of people stared at blank screens in shock. Empress Zalvira rose from her throne. She looked at Elder Vrexmoth with something new in her eyes. Something that might have been hope. Contact the human fleet, she said. Tell them I am ready to talk. Above Vorath Prime, Admiral Wells received the message. She smiled and opened a channel to Earth. They want to negotiate, Mr. President. Then let us give them something worth negotiating for, Martinez replied. It is time to end this war and start something better. The shuttle descended through the clouds above Vorath Prime and landed on a platform outside the Imperial Palace. President Alan Martinez stepped out into the alien air, surrounded by his security detail and accompanied by Ambassador Katie Marshall. The Zorvathi guards at the palace doors watched the humans approach. These were the greatest warriors of the Dominion, chosen for their size and strength and loyalty. Each one stood over 3 meters tall with 4 arms capable of crushing stone. But as the small group of humans walked past them, the guards lowered their eyes and stepped aside. They had seen the fleet in orbit. They knew what humanity could do. And they had learned, like all Zorvathi, that size and strength meant nothing against an enemy that had spent 10,000 years preparing for this moment. Empress Zalvira waited in the throne room. She had removed her ceremonial armor and wore simple robes of dark purple. Without the trappings of power, she looked tired and old. The weight of her failure showed in every line of her face. When President Martinez entered, she rose from her throne and walked down the steps to meet him. Her guards tensed, but she waved them away. President Martinez, she said. Her voice was hoarse. I expected you to send soldiers. Instead, you came yourself. This is not a military matter anymore, Martinez replied. This is about the future of 2 civilizations. That deserves a personal conversation. The Empress studied his face. She had expected hatred. She had expected the cold fury of an enemy savoring victory. Instead, she saw something else. Something almost like understanding. Your fleet could destroy every Zorvathi world, she said. Your soldiers could hunt us to extinction. Why have you not done this already? Because extinction is not victory, Martinez said simply. It is failure. If we destroy you completely, we become exactly what you accused us of being 10,000 years ago. We become monsters. You would have been justified. We attacked you. We promised to murder your people. Yes, you did. And now you have lost. The question is what happens next. He gestured to Ambassador Marshall, who stepped forward with a data tablet. These are our terms for ending this war, Katie said. Complete Zovathi demilitarization. Your warships will be dismantled. Your weapons programs will end. Your military academies will close. The Empress closed her eyes. For a species built on warfare, these terms were devastating. Your government will publicly acknowledge the true history of our first conflict, Katie continued. No more lies about showing mercy to a weak species. Your children will learn what really happened. They will learn that humans were never prey. They will learn that their ancestors survived because mind chose to be better than their enemies. And what else? The Empress asked quietly. What punishment will you demand? President Martinez stepped forward. He looked up at the Zovathi leader, so much larger than him, so much older, carrying the weight of an entire civilization on her shoulders. There is one more requirement, he said. The most important one. The Empress braced herself for the worst. Join us, Martinez said. She opened her eyes. What? Join the United Earth Federation as a full partner. Not as a conquered people. Not as servants or slaves. As allies. As equals. The room fell completely silent. Even the Zovathi guards stared at the human president in disbelief. You cannot be serious, the Empress whispered. I am completely serious, Martinez said. Your ancestors made a mistake 10,000 years ago. So did you. But mistakes do not have to define us forever. We humans believe in second chances. We believe that the worst enemy can become the best friend. We believe that the path forward is not through revenge, but through redemption. He extended his hand toward her. Your species is strong and proud and capable of great things. You have spent 100,000 years fighting. Imagine what you could accomplish if you spent the next 100,000 years building instead. Imagine what we could create together. Empress Alvira looked at his hand. It was so small compared to hers. The hand of a creature she had been taught was inferior, primitive, worthy only of destruction, but that hand belonged to a species that had defeated her empire twice. That hand belonged to a leader who had the power to end her world and chose mercy instead. That hand was offering not conquest but partnership. She reached out with her own massive hand and took his. I accept, she said. Tears fell from her orange eyes, leaving wet trails down her blue face. On behalf of all Zovathi, I accept your terms. I thank you for showing us what true strength really means. 100 years later, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. Human and Zovathi ships flew together through the stars, their crews working side by side. The children of warriors who had once tried to destroy each other now trained together, laughed together, built families together. Old hatreds had faded into history. New bonds had taken their place. In the great library on Varth Prime, a young Zovathi historian named Rexon Ash finished writing the final chapter of his life's work. It was a complete history of the human-Zovathi relationship. From the first conflict 10,000 years ago to the alliance that had transformed both species. He read the final lines aloud to himself. 10,000 years ago, our ancestors attacked humanity because we believed they were weak. We were wrong. 100 years ago, we attacked them again because we had forgotten the truth. They defeated us both times. But the humans did not destroy us. They did not enslave us. They did not take revenge for our crimes. He paused, thinking about all the changes he had witnessed in his lifetime. The walls between species coming down. The old hatred giving way to something better. They could have erased us from existence, he wrote. Instead, they gave us a future. They saw what we could become instead of what we had been. And that is why we will follow them to the end of the stars. He set down his pen and looked out the window at the night sky. Human and Zorvathi vessels moved among the stars, their lights twinkling like jewels against the darkness. Other species ask me why the Zorvathi are so loyal to humanity, Rexnash said quietly to himself. They do not understand. They think we serve the humans because we were conquered. But that is not the truth. He smiled, a gesture his species had learned from their human friends. We follow them because when they had every reason to hate us, they chose love. When they had the power to destroy us, they chose to save us. When we gave them nothing but war, they gave us peace. He closed his book and placed it on the shelf beside 1,000 other volumes, all telling the same story in different ways. The humans taught us something our warriors never understood, he said. True strength is not measured by how many enemies you can destroy. It is measured by how many enemies you can turn into friends. Outside, the stars shone down on a galaxy at peace. And somewhere in that vast darkness, human and Zorvathi voices rose together in celebration of a bond that would last until the end of time. The war that should have destroyed both species had instead created something beautiful. That was the human way. And now, it was the Zorvathi way too.